Working with CivilNet, we're honored to have as our guest today the Ambassador of the European Union to Armenia, Vassilis Maragos. Mr. Ambassador, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation.
What I wanted to start with is you guys have a lot of projects, the European Union as a whole, especially on the economic side, infrastructure and economic side. And frankly, I'm not sure if people know a lot about the specifics of them. So I wanted to give you a chance for you to go through the primary ones that you think that people should know that are not commonly known about the projects that you're working on here.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. And thank you for the opportunity to address the Armenian citizens, the Armenian public through this interview. Actually, I believe that we have to start from a little bit before that. There are not many countries in the world where the EU has increased its commitment in the past few years. The 270 million euro resilience and growth plan, which was announced by President von der Leyen last year, represents a substantial increase of EU funding for Armenia. This is aiming at supporting the country's resilience, economic development. This is a key element of our engagement in Armenia. But actually what we aim at is to produce such results which impact positively on the life of Armenian citizens. We are doing support to reforms, supporting refugees, also actions which bring the country closer to the EU through alignment and approximation. But this is part of an overall joint effort that we have deployed in the past year or so to strengthen the relations between EU and Armenia in all their dimensions. I think this is really an important element. And in this context, I want to stress significant political decisions, political initiatives, which are really bringing Armenia closer to the EU, in particular the opening of the visa liberalization dialogue, the deployment of the EU mission in Armenia, which is a very, very important contribution to peace and normalization in the region, but also support to the territorial integrity and sovereignty of the country, but also opening of the European Peace Facility for Armenia. Now, when it comes to economic cooperation, infrastructure, as you mentioned, I want to highlight that under the Global Gateway, the commitment of the EU to Armenia in terms of investments, which are projected currently with the current projects which are underway, are expected to reach around 2.5 billion euro. Here,
what's the time frame for this?
These are projects which have started in 2021, and I believe that they are going to be completed by 2027. Not the full implementation, but in terms of the allocation, the completion of the commitments. Here I want to stress, for instance, our engagement in the North-South Highway, the Sizan-Kajaran project, which is being developed. There has been a lot of work on the Armenian side to prepare the project, to prepare the financial architecture, but also the technical preparation, the feasibility studies. This is actually more than half of this engagement. But here we have also the Caucasus transmission network. This is a very important investment which will bring Armenia closer to Europe through the enhancing of the electricity grid with Georgia, which will allow more trade in electricity with Georgia and beyond, hopefully, as the infrastructure also through the Black Sea will be completed. And of course, this will allow more investment in renewable energies in Armenia, which will then be able, through this electricity grid connectivity, will be able to be absorbed through more trading.
Just to be clear, this $2.5 billion is not all EU funding. It's other partners funding and investments, and Armenia got correct. This is not just total EU. This does not come from the EU. So what the EU is contributing to that is the possibility to get the loans through concessional funding. Yeah. There is a very significant blended part with a grant, which is part of this of all these investments, in particular when it comes to. Is this with the EBRD? Is it
the Sizan-Kajaran is going to be with the EIB, the EBRD, and the ADB. For the other projects, we work with other partners, but in this amount, we have also significant allocations which are
grants by the EU. For instance, in the area of the support to educational reforms, we are talking about budget support, which is coming mainly from the EU. In the case of the support to refugees, for instance, we are talking again about grant support, which is going either through the government or through humanitarian actors. And here I want to mention also our support to the private sector. This has been significant. Over the past year only, we have been able to mobilize more than 200 million to the private sector, either through the central bank or through private banks, but also through equity funding.
Do you have any names of industries or companies that would have benefited from this that people would recognize?
There are actually many companies, more than 150, 200 companies have benefited from this and are benefiting on a daily basis. If you look around, for instance, in Yerevan, you will see some of the elements of this funding in the announcements by private commercial banks. I think this is important because in this way we provide liquidity to the market, but also we provide opportunities for these private enterprises to develop the investments which will make their companies more competitive, also more ready to export to the European markets. I want also to mention our investments in Syunik.
You have a very specific project, I believe.
In Syunik, we have a big Team Europe initiative, which has allocated more than 150 million so far. Part of it, again, is a loan. For instance, the loan with the European Investment Bank, it's a multi-sector loan which will cover social services, small infrastructure. This was signed actually a couple of weeks ago in July in Luxembourg by Deputy Prime Minister Grigorian and the European Investment Bank. But we have also significant grant funding. Just to give you an example, we have opened, and actually I was very, very impressed when I visited in June the region. We have opened the TUMO Center in Kapan. This has received...
At the train station, I think.
This is a very important historical building, and I think it is a very impressive initiative, which, TUMO is very well known, not only in Armenia, but also now across many, many countries in the world. But what is important is that TUMO, together with the support of the European Union, is investing in the young people in Syunik. More than 1,000 people have been the beneficiaries already of this project, and this is bringing up-to-date, state-of-the-art expertise. And I think that with this investment in the human capital, in the human resources, Syunik and Armenia are becoming more competitive, but also more ready to face the challenges which are linked with the resilience and the economic development of the region.
Well, one of the things we noticed, the statistics that came out yesterday, is that the exports to the EU have actually risen. And this is a very distinctly political thing, because obviously because of the country's reorientation, you need to reorient your economy and your markets that you're going to. So actually moving towards the capacity to sell to the EU is vitally important, along with selling to the rest of the non-Russian market, if we're being pointed about it. So I think this is, we're seeing indications in that. Obviously, this is something that you guys are working on. Let's move on to a more distinctly political question. There's been a big issue in Armenia about EU membership. The Prime Minister said, in 20 years, possibly Armenia can be a member of the EU. I don't believe any of these things, to be honest with you. I just don't think they're realistic. We need to stop wasting our time talking about these things, because I don't think the EU is in any position to expand anytime soon anyway, but that's my personal view. But to me, what is more valuable and as much more interesting, and this is what I want to ask you about, we are much more likely to be a move, what I call an EU directional country, than an EU member country. Those are two different things. Membership is theoretical and far away, if ever. But when you move towards a direction, that's the political orientation. What does that move in that direction? What does EU directional, as I said, it's an invented phrase now. What does that really mean in practical terms? Is it more of what we just discussed? Or is it more than that?
I believe very much in the spirit and the wisdom of the Armenian people. The relations between the EU and Armenia will be shaped by both sides, and it will be shaped, and I'm very convinced about this personally and professionally, it will be shaped by the will of the Armenian people. I believe in the Armenian democracy, and I believe in your capacity, the capacity of the Armenian people to define their future and to adapt to the situation. So the vote by the Armenian National Assembly and also the enactment of this law, which is declarative, it's mainly a demonstration of will, and it is mainly a demonstration of deepening the relationship. This is something on which we are already working. Moving towards closer relations with the EU is already bringing concrete results. We're talking about projects, we're talking about approximation, we're talking about alignment. I mentioned the visa liberalization dialogue, which we should not see outside this strengthening of the relations. And I mentioned also, and I think it is also important, our support to Armenia's sovereignty, territorial integrity, in a context of a normalized region. Peace and normalization in the region is a commitment by the European Union. And of course, accession is also a possibility. As you know, it starts with an application. This is something which requires, of course, to advance the will of both sides. Full unanimous support by the member states is also essential. And it is also a very demanding process, as you alluded to. And actually, the Armenian people know how demanding it is. But I want to stress that the relations between the European Union and Armenia have never been as close as they are now. And we are further strengthening these relations. The visit of High Representative Kallas brought a number of new opportunities. And actually, as we are discussing, we are also examining even further opportunities. We are going also to plan further visits. We are planning a visit by Commissioner Kos in Armenia in September, in particular when it comes to the rollout of the Resilience and Growth Plan, but also how Armenia can benefit from the connectivity agenda of the European Union. We recently agreed on a Black Sea strategy, which is going to bring new opportunities for the region, including for Armenia. Our cooperation on security is also advancing. I mentioned already the European Union mission in Armenia, but we have also launched defense and security consultations, and Armenia is already benefiting from the European Peace Facility.
I think 10 million in the first year.
So I think that this is a number of concrete opportunities which depend actually on both sides, but in particular on the capacity of the Armenian government, of the Armenian people to seize these opportunities and to see how we can really take this forward.
Well, let's talk about, you've mentioned it a few times, we talked about visa liberalization for people. I mean, this is the capacity of Armenian citizens to essentially travel to EU countries much more easier than now. How that is defined is a completely different, it's not, there's different modalities to that. Just obviously is something that will be quite popular because most people, it's not business travel or whatever, it's very difficult if you're an Armenian citizen because of getting visas is difficult to many Schengen countries. How realistic is this visa liberalization or some form of visa liberalization over the short term? I would say this is we're not talking about joining the EU. Visas is a much lower barrier. What are we talking about here? What's realistic, and what would be the timeline of that?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Actually, I recall that last year we organized when we organized the concert on Symphonic Europe. We have very good cooperation with the excellent Philharmonic Orchestra, State Philharmonic Orchestra, and we organized such a concert. And I said a few words, and I have to tell you that when I mentioned the visa liberalization dialogue, the public was, let's say, very, very happy. And of course, it is popular, as you say. I believe very much in the political capital that both sides have invested in this process. I want to stress that the opening of the visa liberalization dialogue with Armenia was an exceptional political move last year. We launched this in September 2024. We haven't launched actually any visa liberalization dialogue with any other partner in the world during the last 5 years of the von der Leyen Commission. So it's something significant. And we did this because we believe in that and because we believe it is realistic. But now, when it comes to the next steps, of course, the work which has been done so far has been satisfactory. We have had assessment missions. When High Representative Kallas was here in June, she has announced the end of the internal commission work to prepare the action plan on the visa liberalization. Now this is being discussed with the member states. And once this discussion is finalized, I hope soon, we are going to present the action plan to the Armenian public, to the Armenian authorities. And actually the implementation of this action plan will define the timeline when the visa-free travel will be possible.
Very good. Let's move on to another thing that you mentioned, which is the EU mission at the borders, which has had a very, by any measure, positive effect on deterring or lessening the chances of aggression. We still see them shootings here and there, but we obviously see them less than we did before the EU mission. And this is, in many ways, it's a security and a politics combined, because any effort like this, it's far more political than it is, because these are not armed people. These are essentially members of, representatives of the most important political body in Europe at the border. That's what it is in real political terms. This has drawn the complaints of some of our neighbors and some faraway countries that the EU mission is involved in spying on different countries or doing all kinds of nefarious activities. Can you tell us a little about their work, and can you dispel some of these accusations?
Yeah. The EU mission is an exclusively civilian and unarmed mission. It has been very successful. It is monitoring the Armenian side of the border with Azerbaijan, not other borders. And it is linked, of course, with our unwavering commitment to peace and normalization in the region. Peace and normalization, which is now becoming more of a reality, I believe, after the Washington meetings, the White House meetings, but also it is based on the principles of sovereignty, territorial integrity, which are also mentioned in the Washington Declaration, and which we have been preaching about for quite some time. And I think this is known and appreciated by the Armenian public. Also, the mission is contributing to human security, to the sense of security of the populations which have been affected by the conflict. And I have to say that each time I have been visiting them, I have been also interacting with the Armenian public, I see the enthusiasm and the positive reactions. So the mission has been tasked, following a request by the Armenian authorities, to report on the situation of the ground, to monitor what is happening at the border, and it is doing this very professionally according to its mandate. Now, I understand that there have been people who may have been commenting negatively about this mission. I think the Armenian public is educated and mature enough in order to understand that this has been disinformation. The mission has been standing by the populations, by the people on the ground. And actually, I think that the results that we have seen over these 2 years when the mission has been present has been positive. And I believe that the presence of the mission has helped.
Let's move on to a more distinctly locally political issue, which is where democracy is at in Armenia. And the reason I bring this up is you spoke positively about the democratic developments in Armenia, but I don't want to push back, but I want to give the counter narrative. Some people say, let's say in the current opposition, that what we've seen with the arrest of some opposition figures for whatever reasons, which are outlined. Obviously, their supporters don't believe those reasons. The people who support the state believe those reasons. Are saying that the state of democracy, and more important, the rule of law in Armenia, is not what some of our European friends are willing to stamp as something that is that should be approved or should be commended. How do you see this, and how do you respond to the critics who say that?
So, democracy, human rights, rule of law, the independence of the judiciary are areas which are in the center of our partnership with Armenia. It is also a very clear and distinct priority within the SEPA agreement, which defines the relations between the EU and Armenia. The EU supports reforms in this area, but also monitors the development, and we have a regular dialogue with the Armenian authorities in this area. When it comes to our support to reforms, we have supported the police reform in the past. We have supported the creation of the Ministry of Interior. We have supported the ombudsperson, the human rights defender, as you know. But also we have been supporting a lot of initiatives by the civil society in the area of the fight against corruption, in the area of the support to distinct human rights, like for instance, cooperation in the area of mental health. We have a very good project in this area, support to disabled people, and of course we support a lot independent media. This was one of the announcements that High Representative Kallas has made when she was here in Armenia. In the last partnership implementation report, which was published last year, just ahead of the Partnership Council, under the SEPA we have the Partnership Council, Committee and subcommittees, the European Union has found that Armenia made further progress in implementing reforms in key areas such as justice and the rule of law. For instance, I want to mention the integrity checks for the judiciary. This has been a clear improvement, despite the challenges which have to do with individual cases. But also we have been mentioning the police reforms as a very distinct area. We are very proud that we have supported this reform. But also Armenia has strengthened democratic institutions such as the creation of the Ministry of Interior, but also taken steps in the area of the fight against corruption. Now, there are critics from the opposition, but also from the civil society and from international monitoring organizations, watchdogs like, for instance, Reporters Without Borders, the Freedom House, the Human Rights Watch, Transparency International. Now, if we want to be sincere, all these organizations rate Armenia relatively high in comparison to the region. Now, of course, there are challenges, and many of the critics and common citizens who are also expecting more from the authorities are right. They are right to expect more. Democracy is a very, very important achievement for Armenia, but it has also to be proven on a daily basis.
It's a work in progress.
It's work in progress, and it has to be proven on a daily basis. We are engaging with all these partners. We take heed of what the critics are saying. We also follow those cases which are brought to our attention. But I have to say as well that the European Union does not have jurisdiction over individual cases. Through dialogue, through engagement, we would like really to make sure that all the cases have to be addressed in line with the legal provisions of your country. There are also commitments under the Council of Europe, as you know. There is an international jurisdiction in the European Court of Human Rights. So I hope that all the concerns will be addressed by everybody who is part of the court, of a court case, according to the law. And this is really something that we have to continue monitor and to continue engaging with the partners. We will support also any new initiatives when it comes to necessary reforms in this area, and this will continue to be part of our engagement with Armenia in the years to come. Democracy, human rights, commitment in this area will continue to be in the center of our engagement. Also, I want to stress that in the context of the visa liberalization dialogue, we are going to have also provisions which have to do with the rule of law and fundamental rights. And there are concrete steps which I hope will be taken and will be covered by the visa liberalization action plan.
I think I asked this question, the one you just answered, but I'm always somewhat reluctant about it because democracy was brought to Armenia by Armenians. It wasn't brought by anybody else, and it's going to be enhanced or preserved by Armenians. For all you can do, yes, it's relevant, but we own ownership of it. It's ours, and you have to keep it. So I think
I agree with you, and actually ownership of reforms and ownership of a polity, any polity, is the distinct privilege of citizens.
Yes.
There is nobody else who can make democracy work in Armenia than the Armenian people.
Yeah.
And actually this is part of our dialogue, and this is part of, you mentioned earlier, accession to the EU. If and when this happens, and actually for every partner, the issue of the ownership of and the functioning of democratic institution on the basis of the constitution of the country is part of those criteria.
Yeah, well, one thing is, and I've noticed this in my regional travels, and especially in Georgia, there's this belief that there's some magic wand where someone can do something in Brussels and everyone lives like Germans. It just doesn't work like that. You know, the job is yours, and you need to do your own job to make the country that you want to do.
And thanks God.
That's very much so. I'm going to close with a very difficult and I would say sad issue for many Armenians. It's the issue of Armenian hostages that are in Baku. There's 23 of them that we know. There's other people who say there's more, but those are the 23 identified people. Most of them, if you look at the trial, from my perspective, they're being tried for the crime of being Armenian, because they're certainly, these tend to be rather, for lack of a better phrase, show trials. What is the European Union's official position regarding the hostages, one? And two, what steps, if any, has the European Union has taken or is willing to take to free those hostages, especially in the light of the developments in DC a few days ago?
Thank you for the question. I know that this is a very painful issue. A very painful issue for the people who are involved, but also all the Armenian people. I have to say that I'm traveling a lot in Armenia, and I hear many people talking about this issue. And the fate of the detainees in Baku is very, very sensitive, and we really are aware of that. Following the steps which have been taken on moving towards peace and normalization, we believe that all the partners in this region have to turn the page of the enmity and address in a very constructive way all the pending issues. Our involvement is through the special representative for the region. She's engaging with all the partners on all humanitarian issues. This is not the only one. There is also the humanitarian issue, which is also very painful for a big part of the Armenian population, about the missing persons. I have had many meetings with the families of the missing persons, and I have to say that I'm impressed by their perseverance, their humanity, their commitment to peace and to finding a solution to issues which are so difficult to forget, which are so difficult to even think about for the rest of us. So we really believe that with constructive approach and with this commitment to peace and normalization, all these issues will be addressed. And as I mentioned, our special representative is engaging with all the partners on all humanitarian issues.
Well, thank you for joining us, Ambassador Maragos. Thank you for joining us at CivilNet.